What is up, my friends? Welcome back to the Home Slice. I'm coming at you from New Zealand on what is forecasted to be the rainiest day of the year. It's supposed to be about 4 inches of rain in the next day and a half. So a little bit crazy right now. Fortunately, I won't have to go out and work in this. It'll still be a day or two yet before I actually get out to do the test. But I wanted to give you the preview of what's coming up. This is my Husqvarna Carpenter's axe. It's a 20-inch handle, I think about a 2.5 pound head. I don't remember exactly. I've reprofiled this. You can see the nice shiny mirror edge, and it hit 160 best. I struggled to get it any finer than that, although I feel I've got real fine edges before. I've profiled the two axes today to about 20 degrees per side. That's because the 19 degrees per side I was doing on the katana and the machete seemed to take too much of a beating with the amount of impact and leverage that's at play. So I wanted to give these guys a little bit more, but not so much that they have a super unfair advantage over the katana and machete, because they'll be going head to head in the next level of the bracket. But you can see this is got a nice push cutting edge. I'm just pulling that paper right through. So at 160 best, it is not bad at all. Definitely shaving sharp. Oh yeah. That is crazy. Oh, there's those little hairs on there, which is a bit gross, I know. This Husqvarna, as I said, was a bit difficult to sort of reprofile to 20 degrees. You can see how thick the bevel is on that, and if you look at the shaping this way, it comes to quite a decent hefty thickness right out from the edge. So we're going to test kind of the line where that transitions and just test the behind the edge thickness on this Husqvarna Carpenter's axe. Okay, the first guess was 95, and that looks about right. The tails of these grind lines where they're disappearing because the fine stones kind of polished them out. If you rest it right there, then behind the edge, this thing is a whopping 95 thousandths. Now I'm really interested to see with this profiling job if that results in better chipping and better throwing chips out of the trees and more efficient cutting action, or much worse, because the Husqvarna Carpenter's axe is going head to head in a battle to retain sharpness with the Cold Steel Trail Boss. The Cold Steel Trail Boss is a bit of a lighter head and a bit of a longer handle. So this is a much more nimble feeling axe, and look how small the bevel is on that at 20 degrees. And that's because they've got a near V grind, like a near flat grind, all the way out to about here on this axe. Let's look at those head to head, because I find axe design really fascinating. So you can see the Husqvarna over here gets really thick right behind the edge, but then it stays sort of flat along the sides, much thinner back in here. By contrast, the Cold Steel is very, very thin behind the edge, and then it sort of gradually heads out. It's like the grind on a spider comb, man. Handle to handle, oh, how am I gonna do this? Handle to handle, that is the dimension. So I've got about a 25-inch handle, I think, on the Cold Steel Trail Boss. Bit to bit or edge to edge, Cold Steel's got probably an additional 3/4 of an inch of edge. We got round about 4.5 inches on this guy, and somewhere around 5, I think, on this guy. These are just guesses. The weight difference is fairly negligible. The Husqvarna's a little bit heavier because it's got a bit more metal, but the Cold Steel has more wood here, and so there's a little bit of increased weight from that. So we've got a real heavy hitter that I think is going to be good for felling, and we've got a real nimble, accurate axe that I think will have really good penetration. The question is, who's going to hold an edge longer? And that brings us to the paper and shaving test on this Cold Steel, which registered down to 132 best? I can't remember. I'll play the video for you. 131 or 132. This is the slicing action of this Cold Steel at the moment. It is butter. It's better than the Husqvarna, the edge it took. It's like, oh, it took a little turn there, but just pull the paper through. It will just slice and slice and slice. Really crazy. The edges these axes took, oh my goodness. That began cutting the paper cross grain. Look at that, there's like a line, and then it actually separated the two layers of the paper without like tearing it. That's crazy. This axe is so sharp, actually. And it was like much easier to sharpen. Cold Steel Trail Boss is shaving even more. It's not quite as good as the 116 best edge. You can feel that I had on my Condor Scout axe, but it's close. There's a little pile of hair there, and on this one there's not as many hairs on the bit because they're actually like spraying and flying off my arm up into the air. So let's test the behind the edge thickness, and then let's get to this test. Oh my gosh. That's 25 thou behind the edge. Guys, that's 25 thou behind the edge. That literally like is the grind of a Spyderco Paramilitary 2. That's crazy. This is going to be so interesting. 25 thou to 95 thou. Gets thicker faster though after the edge because of the long flat grind where the Husqvarna kind of flattens out. This is going to be really interesting. Little heavier, little faster. Anyway, I could go on and on. I get really excited about axes. I love axes. I'm so excited to try these guys out. But anyway, Husqvarna Carpenter's axe versus Cold Steel Trail Boss. Let's get to it and get some actual use, chopping down some woolly nightshade, and then we'll have a test at the end to see which one stayed sharper. If you haven't tuned in, this is the bracket of the tournament that I've done so far and some of the winners, and this will determine the last leg of the first tier of this tournament. At the end of this episode, I'll be able to announce the lineup for the next tier of the tournament, which I'm actually so stoked about. Anyway, let's get to it. I should mention these are both kind of more on the budget end. They're not the most budget axes that you can get, but they're both on the lower price end. They're much less than like your Grants First Brook and your whatever, Wetterlings, whatever. So the Husqvarna is actually hand forged the head in Sweden. And I'm not sure where the rest of the materials come from, but this is the sort of the package you get with nice leather cover. I've beeswax treated this, so it doesn't come looking this nice, but I've done that myself. The Cold Steel didn't come with this. It's got a piece of cardboard, so I don't kill myself with that edge. But it doesn't come with a cover. It does come with a nice, like, lacquered hickory handle that feels good. Doesn't feel quite as grippy as the Husqvarna handle. But I'm very, very interested. I'll put up prices on screen from just some research to find out how much they cost right now. I don't know, because I own this one, but I bought it like 5 years ago. I don't own this one. This is from my workplace, and they've both been beat up a good deal. But this will be real interesting to test what I am sort of considering at the moment, like the Spyderco Endura of axes against like the overbuilt zero tolerance folder of axes, given the grind thickness and the edge thickness. So which one is better? I don't know. Hey, you should cast a vote. Put a vote down in the comments before you watch to the end of this video. Which one do you think is going to have better edge retention, and which one do you think is going to be more efficient? I want to know what you have to say.
When you wake, you see the sky with open ears and open eyes. What some mistake as naivety, there's greater weight and gravity than they could know. They could know. taught your hair to twirl. Your father saw you as a pearl. You got a love for your family. There's a weight and a gravity that can't be held. It can be given away. And your mind, it drifts to pleasant places. And your kindness sifts with reverent patience. And you clearly live with fortune. That your father's love has gone the distance. In the night you see the star with open ears and an open heart. When you wake, you see the sky with open ears and open eyes. But some mistake as naivety. There's greater weight and gravity than they could know. They could know. Your mother taught your hair to twirl. Your father saw you as a pearl. You got a love for your family. There's a weight and a gravity that can't be held. It can be given away. And your mind, it drifts to pleasant places. And your kindness sifts with reverent patience. And you clearly live with fortune. That your father's love has gone the distance.
Alright guys, most of you know the drill. A little lemon essential oil. This stuff is awesome for taking off sap. And I also want to take any wood chips or dirt off the edge, strip off any oxidation. So we're going to clean up the edges of these two axes. And then we're going to do 2 passes each on the unloaded kangaroo leather. And then it's off to the best tester to determine the winner of this final round. Let's do it.
When you wake, you see the sky with open ears and open eyes. What some mistake as naivety is greater weight and gravity than they could know. They could know.
All right, my friends, the results are in. So things were leaning quite heavily toward the Cold Steel Trail Boss, which is pretty amazing. I mean, this is not a forged axe. This is a manufactured sort of axe. And it averaged out at 362. And the first 2 readings on the Husqvarna were 345 and 379. So it was looking like, ooh, we're really in close territory. But for whatever reason, the Husqvarna retained fairly sharp edge in this point, and it's, you know, it's got just as much evidence of dirt and stuff on it and use as the rest of the edge, but this portion of edge tested out at 220, bringing the Husqvarna's average score down to 314.7 grams on the best, which is maybe the second best reading in this whole tournament after, interestingly, the Condor Scout axe. So, some thoughts on use on the 2 axes if you're considering getting an axe. You can generate a large amount of impact easily with this Cold Steel Trail Boss. It's a great axe. It has incredibly deep penetration. The thickness behind the edge makes it possible to just bite into things so deep. I really liked using it. I wasn't going to be sad either way. Cold Steel Trail Boss is great for a lightweight, large size axe, used primarily maybe for trimming and felling. For things where you want deep penetration, fast cutting speed, it worked really, really well. The Husqvarna, to me, felt like it stayed in your hand a little bit better. This lacquer on the Cold Steel Trail Boss is a little bit slick. It's a little bit slippery. The Husqvarna is unfinished, and I did a beeswax coating on it, which feels great, and it just it grips in your hand really well. I was able to be more accurate with it. That could be because I'm used to it more, or because the length and distance to the head is not quite so far. But I feel like the balance and the overall feel of the axe is very precise and very, like it's heavy hitting. You would think that with 90 thousandths of an inch behind the edge, that might hamper your depth of penetration. But I found that they were pretty comparable. The Cold Steel did bite in a little bit farther, but with the Cold Steel, to bite in farther, you'd have to go more of a narrow angle, which is kind of nerve-wracking territory, because if you go too far, you know it slips back out, hey? Anyway, with the Husqvarna, I found that you could use a variety of angles, and because the chopping power was more in the weight and the power of it, it didn't matter quite as much getting that perfect angle. And when you hit an area that had cracks in the other direction, it would throw the chips out a bit more effectively. I know there's a bit of back and forth between axe guys, between like thin behind the edge and like, oh, it needs to throw chips properly. And there was a little bit of that going on here, but to be honest, Nothing so big that I would like recommend one over the other super heavily. Even these best readings are close enough that I would say, hey, buy what you like. They're both great axes in my opinion. I really enjoy them. I need to get like a Grants First or something a bit spendier on the channel at some point and test it against these guys, because that'd be real interesting, like to say, hey, are you actually buying more edge retention for the same edge finish with the extra hundreds of dollars? Forgot to do the paper test. Paper test, paper test. Okay. Husqvarna Carpenter's axe. Oh, beautiful. Actually, did rip a little bit on the, just on the very tip here. But honestly, that could have just been the way I'm holding it, because that thing is beautiful. Wow. Cold Steel, Recon Scout. Or sorry, Cold Steel. Trail Bus. Very good. Very good. Wow, both the axes, such good results. I don't think either of them will push cut. No. Oh, that push cut for a ways. No, it doesn't want to. But slicing like nobody's business. Slicing good. Not wanting to push cut. Push cut about 1.5 inches. That's a good edge still, wow. So this big boy is going to be taking on the Condor Tactana in the final round of Tier 2, as you'll now know if you've seen the last episode. So just to take a look at the bracket, because we now have all the results in, we get to figure out what Tier 2 looks like for all 4 rounds. So obviously I've just mentioned the final round will be Husqvarna Carpenter's axe versus the Condor Tactana, as you can see here. The third round, we will have the K-Bar Becker BK9 facing off against the Survive Knives GSO10. That will be, I will be very interested to see what the results of that are like. Tops Tahoma Field Knife versus the Condor Scout Axe. And for the first round, we are going to have a little bit of a plot twist. So you guys have seen in this video that some of the trees I'm running into are massive. So I just don't think I can go back to the 6-inch knives. The Falcon Even A1 and the Top Silent Hero were actually super fun for the work that I was doing at that time and the sizes of trees. I don't think that I'm going to be able to get by with them for these bigger trees. So I've sent the Top Silent Hero back to its owner, who's a very happy man, and I should say at this moment that almost none of this testing would be happening without my viewer, Andrew Van, who's sent along about half of these blades and is going to send along even more of the next tournament's blades. So thank you, Andrew. You are awesome. This has been so fun. I hope you've been having fun. I've been having fun. But I've looked over the results, the best numbers, and everything, and I think that the most fair and fun thing to do would be to have the BK7 face off against the Elephant King Cleaver. Now the reason for this is because it actually beat the best score of most of the knives. The only reason that it lost was because it was facing off against the Condor Scout Axe, which got a record-breaking number for this test. I believe the Condor Scout Axe and the GSO-10 were the only ones to break the 300 mark. If you go up above 300, this guy's just taken first place, but not far behind is this pot metal cleaver. And I, for one, want to know, hey, what does another 90 minutes do? Does this edge actually endure over time? And if so, should we be considering lower carbon, more ductile steels for our choppers? This is for me, or even like low Rockwell hardnesses, this is actually a valid question for me. So we're going to have our first round be the K-Bar Becker BK7, which is a solid survival combat knife, versus the Elephant King Cleaver, which is a bit of a joke, but is performing really well. Anyway, I hope you guys had as much fun as I did. If you didn't catch the katana versus machete on last episode. I'll put a link to that right up here, and you can catch up. For all the rest of you, I'll just say, hey, peace out from the home slice.